These are 7 Premier League players that have lost absolute fortunes through gambling, because so often we see reports that top level players just can't stop placing bets, even when it's forbidden. But it has a savage impact on some of them, ruining their careers and leaving them totally broke, as you're about to see. So starting the countdown at 7, Joey Barton's gambling cost him his career as a Premier League player, because in April 17, news broke that he'd placed more than 1,200 bets, breaking FA rules in the process. Throughout his career, he made a total of 269 Premier League appearances, including 130 for Man City, although you probably recognise him as the Bristol Rovers manager today. The FA fined him £30,000 and slammed him with an 18-month ban as a penalty, which ultimately ended his career early. At the time, he made a public statement that shunned the punishment and accused the FA of hypocrisy for promoting gambling. The bets included some real shockers over a number of years. Of those that were released publicly, he'd lost £17,000 from around about £200,000 worth of bets. However, at the time he was earning a salary of around about £70,000 a week, so it's easy to see why it didn't stand out as a problem to him at first. Although he admitted himself it will always be a potential problem. He said, if you're an addict, you're kind of always in recovery, even if you've got the better of your addiction. Sadly, it cost him his playing career, although he seems to have recovered since, suffering far less than others on the list, because number 6 has been plagued with multiple addictions over the last 20 years. The former Spurs and England player was first reported to have a gambling problem as early as 1996. At the time, he was playing for Rangers on a salary of £22,000 a week. Adjusted for inflation, that's around about £39,000 in today's money. He said that initially he saw gambling as a way to cope with the pressure of being a Premier League star. Presumably, it's how his relationship with alcohol and cocaine started too. He's best remembered as an extremely talented midfielder who appeared in the 1990 World Cup semi-final and helped Spurs win the FA Cup a year later. Although in recent years there's been a string of slightly more controversial incidents, such as the time that he turned up in a dressing gown with a fishing rod and fried chicken to save killer on the run Raul Mo. The exact amount he spent on gambling alone is uncertain, although it's suggested to be a portion of the 20 million he is reported to have blown through over the last 2 decades. For Gascoigne, it appears to be a traumatic cycle of rehabilitation, relapse, going broke, hitting rock bottom, and then rehabilitation once more. Hopefully he's broken that cycle for good this time, much like number 5 on the list, a striker who formerly played for Newcastle United, Cardiff City and Ipswich Town, because in 2011 Michael Chopra publicly admitted to having a gambling addiction, speaking about how he would gamble up to £20,000 per day at times. He said there were times where as soon as he got to the dressing room he would check his phone to see if he had won, and also that players would bet as much as £30,000 on the team bus. It was a strain on his then £21,000 a week salary, leading him to build up significant gambling debt. The BBC even reported that Ipswich Town had loaned him £250,000 to help pay them back. In 2013, a court heard that his gambling habit had cost him a total of £2 million, leaving him skin in the process. But number 4 has had a far tougher ride, losing even more money, because this is where we really get into the Premier League players that have been left totally broke because of their gambling habits. It's serious stuff. I'm talking about German footballer Dietmar Hamann. Eventually, his excessive drinking and gambling led to him losing a heap of money and his career as a Premier League player. During his time, he played for several top Premier League teams, including Newcastle United, Manchester City and Liverpool, before retiring in 2011. He made 59 international appearances for Germany and was one of the winning Euro 96 squad members. He says that his gambling spiralled out of control after the breakdown of his marriage. Some of the bets he placed are absolutely brutal. Amongst his autobiography, The Diddy Man, he recalls spread betting on the cricket where he bought Australia for £2,800 at 340 runs, which means for every run over 340, he would win £2,800. Or for every run under, he would lose the same amount. The final score for that particular match was 237. That one bet had cost him £288,400. It's estimated that he's lost 2.5 million on gambling in total. Ouch. But it's not half as bad as the losses for the final three. They start to get a little bit silly here, being more than some people will ever earn in their entire lifetime. Because number 3 on the countdown is Edgar Johnson, the former Chelsea and Barcelona star. When it comes to football, he's remembered for his ability as a midfielder, although he also represented Iceland internationally at the Euros and World Cup. He first admitted that he was hooked in 2003, where it was revealed that he had blown £400,000 in just 5 months at the casinos. It's said that he would spin £2,000 a go on the roulette wheel. At the time, he was reported to be earning around £20,000 a week. For context, that's around about £32,000 in today's money. He took full responsibility though, publicly saying that I can easily see how young people can get sucked into gambling, and I'm happy to stand up as a warning to others not to get hooked. Later in his career, he would demand nearer to £100,000 a week as a Premier League star, and things appeared to be spiralling out of control again. It's reported that eventually he found himself £6 million in debt and vowed that he would never gamble again. But one of the most shocking cases of Premier League players that went broke is Keith Gillespie. The former Premier League player is best remembered for his time playing at Manchester United and the Northern Ireland national team, where he earned 86 caps. Gillespie has spoken publicly about how his gambling addiction began in his early 20s. In his autobiography, How Not to Be a Football Millionaire, he details how his gambling addiction first took hold during his time at Man United and then later spiralled out of control. Despite being younger than the rest, he was earning around about £12,000 per week at the time. He wrote that he would spend his entire salary on gambling, and it took him a long time to get out of gambling debts that he had subsequently built up. He also reveals that it led to financial bankruptcy and relationship breakdowns on the way. In total, it's estimated that he's lost around £7 million, but the last is the most stomach-churning of all, particularly when you consider news of his most recent gambling problem that appeared just a few months ago, because in the number 1 spot, we've got former Premier League player Paul Merson. Aside from his work with TalkSport and Sky Bet, he's most remembered for his time at Arsenal, where he played as an attacking midfielder. In his younger years, he was known for his skillful creativity on the pitch, although things started to go wrong in 1994, just aged 26. At that time, he was playing for Arsenal, earning a salary of just under £20,000 a week. Paul Merson has spoken publicly about how his gambling addiction began in the late 80s and early 90s, where he was playing for clubs like Arsenal and Villa. He's also spoken about how his addictions have escalated with cocaine and alcohol. Ultimately, it's led to horrendous financial problems and damaged relationships for the father of 8. In interviews and his first book, How Not to Be a Footballer, Merson details how his addiction took hold. Since then, he's appeared on various betting adverts and wrote another book about the hardship of his losses. He's even appeared at gambling reform rallies and on the BBC as a figurehead for political campaigns, forcing affordability checks on everybody who gambles. Sadly, a few months back, news broke that he'd lost another £160,000 gambling around the same time. Previously, it was estimated that he's lost over £7 million gambling, although sadly, it doesn't sound like he's clear of it just yet. Hopefully that changes in the future.